When I was young, my first experience with gaming centered around the first PlayStation console. My father had gotten one off of our neighbor, along with a copy of Cool Borders and Resident Evil Survivor. Within a few years, I then upgraded to a PS2, getting lost in amazing titles like Ratchet & Clank, a demo of Dark Cloud that I played far too many times, Jak and Daxter, and many more as time went on. As the years went by, I would journey through each subsequent console generation, experiencing all they had to offer before finally moving on to PC as my preferred platform. I entered the world of PC gaming at a time when it was more mainstream and populous than it has ever been. Ray tracing tech is rapidly becoming the norm, esports is practically a household term, and pretty much every gamer you speak to has at least a cursory understanding of the pros and cons of console versus PC gaming. And aside from gaming, rapid internet access means that any game, no matter how obscure, is always a click or two away, including the tide of reviews and opinions on it. It's safe to say my fondest gaming memories center around consoles, and my preference is for PC gaming. Each have a magic of their own, but it's a certain kind of magic that gaming in general used to hold that drew me to it in the first place. A sort of mystery and soul that modern gaming just cannot seem to replicate. The purpose of this video is to get these feelings out there, find people who feel the same way, and just pay respect to an aspect of gaming that we likely won't see ever again. Let's start by rewinding to 1998 or 1999, around that time. We had a shitty Windows 98 PC that my parents used for... I'm not even sure. We didn't have internet and I don't think they were using it for college work or anything like that, so I'm not 100% sure on why it was there, but 6-year-old me used it for two purposes. Watching a video of this weird little game called Gunlock demo, and also the absolute creme de la creme of 90s kids PC gaming. Motherfucking Learning Land. Learning Land was, I can confidently say, my first experience of PC gaming. The PC gaming bug wouldn't have set in, however, until a few years later. Fast forward to the early 2000s and I see my uncle playing a strange game on his own PC, a third-person adventure shooter kind of thing. And with an actual joystick too, no less, the absolute mad lad. I didn't get the name of the game at the time, but I was enchanted by its somber mood, its muted colours, pools of water held sideways with magic, and all with the main character being an elf, something I associated with kid-friendly stories and fairy tales. An elf who could literally get decapitated if you played too recklessly, which blew my small kiddie brain and killed just a smidgen of my innocence. I was so intrigued by the fact that games like that could run on a PC as opposed to a PlayStation, and so I was hit by the heady realization that there were many more games out there in a world that I had never heard of, a whole realm of adventure and mystery. I would learn many years later that this game was called Heretic 2. The reason I learned this was because even after all of those years, that sense of wonder and mystery never left me, and I just had to look it up years later. Over the following years, I would play console games that had a certain magic to them. Games would get better and better looking, better animated, utilise ever more dazzling and complex effects, etc. But it was always the gritty, raw, unrefined style of older games that drew me back in. But apart from the style, what was it about these games that made them so alluring? What modern games do well is let you explore pretty much everything you can see. The oft-quoted Todd Howard boast of,
"That mountain is not just a backdrop, you can walk all the way to the top of that mountain."
If you told gamers from the late 90s and early 2000s that exact quote and the accompanying footage, they would surely start foaming at the mouth at how far gaming technology had come. Climbing distant looming mountains is surely a magical possibility, but maybe letting you climb them is exactly what takes the magic away. Compare the mountains of Skyrim to the flat, low-resolution backgrounds in Summoner and Rune, among others. In Skyrim, you can see the mountain from the ground and run all the way to the top. You've accomplished your journey, seen what lies at the top. Fun and rewarding to be sure, and yet something is now missing. The mystery. Whereas in Summoner and Rune, you'll never know what lies in those hills and mountains, in those deep dark woods. Sure enough, you could get out of bounds through glitches or console commands, but you will still ultimately only move towards a still image, sometimes ad infinitum. You will see those woods, those mountains, but never actually reach them, and it's in your imagination where the magic happens. Your imagination is more mysterious than anything those games could offer you directly. Skyrim and similar games offer you worlds that are vast and wonderful, but also very much 100% explorable. To tame a land is to remove all mystery. The strength of these old, pixelated backgrounds is in providing your imagination with the fuel it needs to create whole, unseen worlds beyond the game's borders. Through this, older games can seem far more vast, mysterious and daunting than anything modern games can offer, especially when it comes to RPGs or grand sci-fi like the Unreal games. How often have you looked at the distant dreamy peaks of Spyro the Dragon's loading screens and wished Spyro could take a turn mid-flight and fly to them instead? Or even tried in vain to escape the magical barriers of Stone Hill and charge jubilantly through the rolling green hills that comprise the level's background? I would often stop and gaze at the distant mountains of Siphon Filter 2's opening level, wondering how far the mountains extended and how far our hero was from the nearest civilization. The fact it dropped into a black void lent the scene a dreamlike quality, completely unreal and never to be found in the real world. To reinforce my earlier point, look at this vista from Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. As I gaze out into this desert at night, it almost looks like the surface of Mars. I would wonder what every shift in the colour represented, what lay within every crater and groove, and then I'd wonder what lay in the shadow cast by the nearby moon. I'd even zoom in with the sniper rifle, night vision active, trying to discern what lay in the darkness beyond. Compare the scene to the remastered graphics. Sure, it looks objectively more beautiful, but now there is no work left for my imagination to do. We can see huge detailed mesas that continue as far as the eye can see, but when the eye can actually see that far in crisp detail, you lose the magic of what it can't see. While these background images are often heavily pixelated, and don't scale well with modern resolutions, and are sometimes revealed to be flawed and patchy, they still hold boundless beauty and mystery to me. To me, they are vast, dreamlike vistas, on which a realm of adventure takes place that makes the level you're in feel like a tiny floating island, adrift in the gulfs of imagination. But the magic of old games isn't defined by these background images alone. In modern games, the budget and ambition is on a level that would have been unheard of in older games. When it comes to music, you'll enjoy soaring choirs, full orchestras, groundbreaking ideas and executions, and a world of audio technology and software at the fingertips of aspiring composers and audio engineers. However, it was when audio was more limited and compressed, and used genres and sounds that have now largely faded away, that there was old magic to be found. Would Unreal Tournament have stood out as much as it did for you if the soundtrack was anything but the inspired mix of late 90s techno, gothic choirs and sci-fi synths?
Double kill.
Would Halo have drawn you into the sense of ancient mystery and wonder if it did not have its angelic choirs and ominous Gregorian chanting infused with sci-fi synth magic? I know for a fact that Spyro would not have had the same effect it had on me were it not for the whimsical, dreamlike prog rock soundtrack composed by Stuart Copeland that perfectly suited the dreamy atmosphere and cartoony style of the game. While this style of music is certainly not confined to the late 90s and early 2000s, Stuart's sound for this soundtrack is something I associate with the visuals and atmosphere of Spyro. The visuals and sounds are intrinsically linked, and this is also the case for many other games that have that old magic. While these soundtracks are available in higher quality nowadays, there was something about hearing that slightly compressed and muffled sound that made it drip with that old game atmosphere. It made it just a bit more distant, just a bit more muffled, like recalling the sounds of a dream. I draw a lot of parallels with dreams in this video, and I do so because dreams are the closest thing I can think of that have a similar energy to the energy that I tap into when playing these old games. People who are fond of Vaporwave, the Backrooms, Liminal Spaces and Canopsia, I think all tap into this same energy through one aspect of it or another. Just look at how well received the horror game No Players Online by Paper Cookies was received. Creepy though this energy can sometimes be, there are quite beautiful aspects too, especially as games started to fade into more realistic versions around the mid-2000s onwards, where level sizes and graphics tech started to eliminate the more alien facets of this old magic. So magical was this effect that old games have, that it seemed to extend beyond the games themselves. I remember a shop in my hometown called Quinn's Computers. They were a PC shop in general, but they also had a game section for PS2 and PC games. These games definitely weren't their specialty, as many were left on the shelves for many years, their price stickers untouched. At first, I thought they were perhaps lazy or out of touch for neglecting their game section, but it wasn't until years later that I came to appreciate it. I began to see it as a sort of time capsule, games frozen in time from when they were brand new. While people were queuing for the midnight releases of next gen at the time, hype machines like Halo 3 and Gears of War, this was the only shop where I could see a copy of Giants Citizen Kabuto with a €60 price sticker on it. They even had a brand new sealed copy of Alien Resurrection for the PlayStation 1, with a price sticker on it asking for £30. That's obsolete Leprechaun money for any non-Irish viewers. I would often stop into this shop just to look at the games they had on display. I rarely bought anything from them due to them actually selling the games for the price on the sticker, but I would marvel at the old style CD case of V2000 and wonder what it would be like to play games like Spellforce, Heroes of Might and Magic 5, Black and White, and the list goes on. In recent years, Quinn's ultimately closed down. I lament the loss of this imagination-fueled magic in games, that kind of magic that transcends the games themselves to the point that even looking at the cases fires your mind up with it. And now, there is one less place in the world where I can get it. Places like it are disappearing every day, replaced by non-gaming stores or by mainstream game retailers like CEX or GameStop, of which only CEX has a chance of selling these older games, at least where I live. Around this time, consoles were undoubtedly more popular than PC. Any toy store or CD store almost always had a selection of console games on offer. PC game sections had a mystique all their own because of this. As I browsed them, I felt like some 80s child protagonist, discovering some obscure, dust-covered magical artifact of a game, where so many kids were obsessing over the shiny new trendy ones. What really helped this feeling was being stuck in the rural Irish countryside with zero internet till I was around 17. My sole means of learning about games was through friends, or the occasional game magazine. The games I would look at in these game sections were games I had literally heard nothing about. The sense of mystery was entirely unspoiled by article snippets online, YouTube videos, or reviews or Facebook video snippets. Before I set eyes on them, these games gathered dust in perfect obscurity. So what is the point of this whole video? Well, basically, old good, new bad. No, but seriously, this video is simply a means of getting out some thoughts and feelings I've had on old games for quite a while. It's a way to find other people who feel the same way and maybe want to fawn over the particular flavour of nostalgia I might have brought back to those who've watched this far into the video. It's a lamentation of the fact that despite how far games have come, that this form of magic will almost certainly never be seen in games again, bar a few rare instances throughout the years. And finally, it's an ode to the neglected PC game section in your local store, where gathered dust covers stickers priced with money and values from another era, where eyes like ours perused archaic screenshots and art styles, with a sense of intrigue and mystery that cannot survive under the immolating gaze of instant online information. If you are lucky enough to live somewhere with a shop that still has an old game section like the one I've described, take a long, slow browse of it, drink in the history, Maybe buy a souvenir. Appreciate it while it's there, as it won't be there forever. I always thought I could drop into Quinn's on sunny Friday evenings after school, but here I am now, practically grieving as I make this video. Someday there won't be any Quinn's computers left in the world. Marvel at those venerable old covers while you can, because they won't always be there. Thank you for watching.